Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon of day 2 of the House of Paint 2020 Knowledge Conference online for the first time ever. Before we begin, I would like to lead with a land acknowledgement. House of Paint is on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. This is Ottawa-Gatineau area. Ottawa is situated where three rivers meet, which is a very, very sacred space in Indigenous culture. And it is very important that as guests on this land, uninvited guests at that we ensure that we are good stewards of the land and take good care of Mother Nature and the people around us, and that we keep our Indigenous First Nations, Inuit and Métis brothers and sisters at the forefront of the work we do in this land. With that said, I am going to introduce you to our moderator for today's panel. Our moderator today is Paula. Paula C. is an Ottawa-born artist whose truthful sound waves invite you to reflect as you feel rejuvenated, healed, and loved by her musical vibe. This powerhouse vocalist credits the opening of her artistic expression to her experience singing in choirs in high school and vocal training with early influences of reggae and R&B from her Jamaican and Dominican upbringing. As a strong community builder and extremely supportive peer, Paula C. has shared her voice from local ciphers to world-class stages, including, and this was very recent, Blues Fest and the National Arts Center. Paula C. is part of the rhythm section accompanying fellow Ottawa musician Nambi. In February, Paula C. released her debut single, Never Thought, and the single is an honest reflection on her views on self-love and transcending love beyond genders. You can look forward to hearing her neo-soul with a gospel flow in upcoming releases. Paula C. also works within the Black community to create uplifting experiences and opportunities, on top of which Paula runs Curly Hair Design, her independent business, which recently celebrated 10 years of operations. Congratulations on 10 years, Paula. I'm gonna leave this in your very capable hands, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here today with you guys. What a time we're in where, you know, we have the luxury of being able to pivot to doing things online. So it's a blessing to be able to still connect with everyone today. Before we get into it, House of Paint, I've been a fan for many years. I've been attending for many years. So I just want to take a minute to thank some of the people that helped this happen. So the City of Ottawa, the Arts Council, funded by the Government of Canada, Canadian Heritage, Association des Communautés Francophones d'Ottawa, CBC Ottawa, Ottawa Bilingual, Dominion City, Alternative Hosting, Ill Abilities, Mural Roots, Ottawa Music Industry Coalition, and produced by youth. So thank you to everyone who is able to support funding, sponsoring, and just sharing everything that's going on with the Knowledge Conference this year. Now, I want to get into the amazing panel that I have in front of me. So, City Fidelia, who is a part of the, or creator rather, of the Real House of Ensemble, as well as an international performing and recording artist. We have Sami Slynks. He is the owner of the Flavor Factory, as well as certified b-boy champ. We have Jen McKerral. She is a co-creator of Up Here, a music arts, urban music and arts festival in Sudbury, as well as music outreach officer for the Northern Ontario's Music Industry Association. We have Jacqui de Toit, that is right now currently at Origin Studios, where she has taken on this space with another local artist, Jamal and she's also an 8th generation storyteller. We have Tao-Ming who is the creator of the Blue Crane booking agency, which prioritizes bookings for women as well as BIPOC artists, so Black, Indigenous, people of color. So thank you for being here today. I'm gonna get right into it. I have questions that I'd like everyone to answer. So I'm gonna start right to the left of me with City Fidelia. Tell us about your creative space or outlet and your main goal or motivation to take on this work when you decided it was time to get it started.
For me, when I got the idea of wanting to do creative space, it came about when I came across Metro's music, which is like a young artist that passed away earlier this year. And when I came across this music, I really wanted to create a space for young individuals that live in like low income neighborhoods to have a space where they could really get creative and also have access to like the music industry within the city of Ottawa. So that was the thing that really gave me the drive to like want to open a space like this. And I also felt like the city was kind of missing a hub where a lot of creators could just come together, whether it's like they create like some kind of project or just like simply talk about life with each other, because that's how like great art usually comes together. Sometimes it just takes like great conversations between creators in order to elevate each other. So I think me as an artist, I wanted to make sure that I'm able to provide other artists what I felt I was missing for myself. So, a great place to record, I create at a sustainable like price, and I plan to keep it that way.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I have recently been to your space. You have a beautiful space. I remember walking down the stairs and I was like, ooh, it feels like home in here. So big ups on creating the Real House of Ensemble. I can't wait to just see what you continue to do in the city.
Thank you.
Then I have the same question for you. What was your motivation? What are some goals that you had when you decided to step into the festival?
That's me. Sorry, I think I missed that first part. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think living in Sudbury, it's it's a small city, so it's a neat place to be able to create something because not everything's been done. So it's kind of we've have other festivals and other events, but there's still a lot of room for to be able to kind of just, like, if you don't see it happening, to make it happen. And we have a really good, tight community to help make that happen. So it was really just like, for me anyway, it was wanting to see certain types of music that I wasn't seeing, and just kind of putting it on myself so that I could see it, which is ironic because I'm running around most of the time and don't get to see much while I'm putting it on. But yeah, and it was like a really cool kind of community building thing that I didn't really expect, because I mean, it did kind of come from kind of selfish beginnings where I was like, I want to see this, so I'm going to do this, and then just seeing the people who also felt the same way and like wanted to support what we were doing, and what's come out of it is just this great volunteer run community and an event. So it's yeah, it just started off very like small, humble kind of intentions, and then something that just kept rolling, and it's something now we can't really stop. Like, more and more people are involved, and it's just kind of making it more sustainable.
Who knew? That's great that it's being able to gain so much traction. When did you birth the festival?
It started in 2015. So we just had our 6th edition, which looked a bit different than all the other ones, but yeah, still going, still doing.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you. Jacqui, how about yourself?
Can you repeat the question again, please, Paula?
What were, tell us about the creative space or outlet, as well as your main goal or motivation to take on the work when you decided that it was time to step into it.
I felt that there was a gap, and a gap that needed to be filled. And like Jen, it also came out of selfish reasons, you know, where it was like I couldn't find a space that made me feel welcomed and to be able to express myself fully, wholly in all that I am, and to open up to other artists who are emerging or struggling or need some form of community or connection, to feel like home away from home. And as some of you know, I'm from South Africa and I've been living in Canada for 10 years. And I think that first, you know, as an immigrant, that first 3-4 years is so heart-wrenching, of the longing for home, the longing for familiarity, the longing for family and connection, and feeling lost in another country, and trying to find your feet and where do you belong, who do you belong to, all these questions. And one of the main things that kept coming up was art, you know, expression. That is where there is no boundaries, there is no right, there is no wrong. It's a welcoming. That is where you've always found home. So to create a space where others who have gone through maybe similar paths or different but have the same feeling can come to a space where they feel someone gets it, someone gets me, and this space holds me, this space gets me. I can just be me without having to put up another mask or another face of people pleasing or anything. I can just be. And I think that's where the seed and idea plant of creating a space like the Origin came, as well as the form of storytelling and the discipline that I'm in.
Thank you, Jacqui. And when was Origin's birth as well?
Origin, sure. I think it was also 2015, but it's been in stages. And, you know, with each stage, I don't think we've ever had like a launch, you know, because each time we just like, oh, okay, better now, you know, as we just keep creating. But 2015 would be, I would say, the time when we actually took over.
Yes, thank you. I've been many times and hosted events there. Another beautiful space that our city has to offer. And it's really, I find it interesting because everybody is saying it kind of came from selfish reasons, but that's the beauty of it. When you're feeling that you are not able to, you know, get filled for you, you got to go and do it yourself. So I appreciate that, that's something you've done. I just want to jump over back over to you, City, and can you tell me when you opened the Real House of Ensemble?
I got this space, I think maybe like 2 days before COVID hit. Yeah. So that was it was kind of rough, just because, you know, I didn't get any relief on the rent or anything like that, and I wasn't allowed to start business. But we officially really opened like I think July. That's when we started, and it's been good. The city has been really supportive of the space, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see where it's gonna go.
Yes, I'm grateful that you were able to keep it going through this pandemic, even though there was no rent relief. That must have been quite the trial, but I'm really happy to see you pushing through.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to also take a minute to thank Chris for being here. He is our ASL interpreter. Okay, so now we have Sami. Tell us about your motivation. What gave you that drive to open it up at the Flavor Factory?
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of resemblance to what everybody else is saying. I've been a b-boy since 2001. I've been dancing when I was like 14 or 15, and I had been going to other dance studios and places after like, you know, starting breaking and trying to find like, is there a place where I can learn breaking, like real breaking? And I just started to find that a lot of the spaces were not as approachable or open. Like I'd been going to dance studios and you know, I just didn't quite fit in, like came from a single mother household, didn't really come from a lot of means. Like luckily my mom really saw how important that was for me in my character development at the time of my life. So she really pushed for it, but you know, it's expensive. It's not approachable. It's, you know, you kind of are going to these places and not really feeling like you fit in. And it's something that I didn't think about until much later in my life, talking to some of the other people at my place that really resonated when they showed up here. But I opened my space in 2011. I had always had that mindset that I would love to see a space that was dedicated to hip hop, urban dance, breaking especially, and really give an opportunity for people to learn, especially hip hop, which at the time I felt was being taught at places, but was really just like a glorified version of jazz, which was just being taught by some traditional dancer that had been learning from another jazz dancer, and they threw on some hip hop track, or a Britney Spears song was like, oh, here, we're doing hip hop. Like, no, you're not, you know, you're not. So really like a lot of that too at the time was about also like reprogramming people's minds to be like, well, this is what hip hop actually is. And if you're looking for choreography, we got that too, but let's define that shit, right? So we opened up our space in 2011. I started my spot in the South End around South Keys, which was the neighborhood I grew up in, which wasn't a lot of opportunities for youth around that area at the time. I'd been doing work already, teaching in other dance studios, teaching in other community centers, teaching at like a Taekwondo dojo, like really going all over the place and just like honing in on my little pieces. And I had also been a part of a crew that we had started in 2007, which we actually launched at House of Paint that year. And we were called Breadcrumbs. And our mentality was about putting kind of Ottawa on the map and being like that young crew that would go out and travel and compete and learn and connect with people. And our sense was that we kind of filled this gap of, there was a lot of these younger dancers. They'd been learning dance off of YouTube and shit like that, and just like picking up whatever they could from clips. And then there was the older dudes, like the bigger crews that had been, you know, connected and in that kind of pocket and community. And we kind of sat somewhere in the middle where we had the connection to these people and we still had the connection to that. And we really understood our position at the time. And that really helped us to figure out what we wanted to do, which was, let's try to bring this all together. Let's throw some events so that we can connect people. We started doing school versus schools at the time, code events, just to like throw something in the city that was an exhibition battle. That started really kicking things off. And things got to kind of move from there. I had an opportunity of learning in Whitehorse from a mentor about how to open up space, how to throw events. And then when I came back to Ottawa, I was trying to find work, and shit just didn't work out. And it felt like everything was really pushing me towards dance. And even though I was trying to push away sometimes, it really launched me into it. And I had the opportunity of just jumping in full tilt, and totally did that. Like jumped in, signed a lease without really knowing what I was doing, and then had to just go for it. But the space in the South was just a one-room spot. And, you know, I had my desk in the front. I had the studio dance floor right in the back with the mirrors. And I'd literally be like teaching a class, have somebody come in, have to jump on the chair, roll up, like sign them up for the next thing, and then get back into teaching. So at the time I was doing a little bit of it all. But now, you know, we're in Hintonburg area. I got lucky and found a really great space with multiple rooms, and we've been slowly building it out and really like refining things as we go and trying to find more uses for the space and really give more opportunities for not just, you know, people to teach and to present, but also to like mentor youth to be able to continue that legacy going. So we've put some like real thought behind, okay, how do we keep the longevity of this? So, you know, we have our crew program, which is like our our definition or our, you know, version of what like a competitive dance program would be. And it really teaches the group about how to stay connected as a crew, understand like the nuances of approaching not just like performance dance, but freestyle dance, and also teaching and then connecting with youth in that way. So yeah, I kind of rambled a bit there, but there's a kind of spread of some of the things that we do.
Thank you, Sami. I've also been to your space. I remember I was there for a cypher years ago, and congratulations on coming up to the 10-year mark. It's a big deal. A big deal. So bless up on that. Thank you.
Yeah, that must have been just when we opened up around this area too.
Amazing. Tao-Ming, please share with us your motivations, your goals. Why did you begin the Blue Crane Agency? What does it mean?
For sure. Thanks everyone for having me here. I'm super excited to do this with House of Paint. So I originally hail from the West Coast. Started my first music gig in like West Coast pop music. So Carly Rae Jepsen's label in Vancouver in 2012, I believe 2013. And then through that came to Toronto, you know, did business school here where I'm currently am, worked for and then, you know, by about 5 years working on labels, management, some sync and publishing work, the part of the music industry that I loved the most and had no experience in was live and touring shows and event production. So I got a job with a Chicago-based agency called Billions, which is, we had offices in LA, Seattle, Chicago, Nashville, and Toronto. And yeah, that was like my first dose of working in a booking agency. We repped, it was sort of like an indie rock empire. So we repped acts like Bashi Bula, Wolf Parade, Vampire Weekend. We had a few hip hop acts. You know, we booked Wu-Tang. I brought No Name to A&R there, which was great. But it was mostly dabbled in indie rock and folk music. But there I really cut my teeth routing tours for artists, mostly Canadian artists, into international territories, mostly in North America. So I've had as much experience routing tours and shows through Florida, California, as well as Saskatchewan and the North. So I have quite a varied experience there. But in my entire, I guess, like 7 years on the industry side through label management, live and touring, you know, I didn't see proper representation for diversity acts. I didn't see proper representation from minority acts. So Blue Crane Agency is my agency that I've had since it birthed 2018. And the whole agency mandate behind Blue Crane is repping women, BIPOC folks, and queer and trans artists. I'm a gay woman of color. These are the artists that, in my mind, have the most interesting narratives, have the greatest shows, sell the greatest tickets in the world today, and have the most to say on stage. Passionate about repping these artists, and I've sort of culled together a whole robust roster of incredible female DJs. You know, some of our acts are Jacqui Ibrahim, who Jacqui, I don't know if you're aware, but South African artist, us last year to, you know, basement shows, and we did like a recent time code show at the Freak. DJ Indian from Tribe Called Red was one of the formation artists on our roster. He's sadly no longer with us. Shaylia, French Djibouti artist who has played in Ottawa as well previously. Bambi, Jamaican DJ on our roster. Lucala, Kelly Techness, Too Attached with Vivek Shreya. we rep women and BIPOC artists, and that's what we care about. So that's what we're about. Why did I create Blue Crane? It came out of anger and frustration, complete anger and frustration at mainstream and corporate, working at mainstream and corporate music institutions all in my life. You know, it was seeing my older white bosses never go to shows throughout the week and sending all the young 22-year-old BIPOC folks to shows, and then coming back on Monday morning being like, what's hot? Like, tell us, you know, like run essentially our whole A&R department. We'll take your ideas and bill it, set 10% commission, and represent these artists as our own. So there, I didn't representation on the agent side, on the management side, on the label side in terms of the decision makers, and I wanted to change that. So you can check what we're all about. Blue Crane Agency on Instagram is our latest updates, and yeah, it got birthed out of anger and frustration, and that's often, I think, the biggest motivator and the most passionate motivator I think I have towards the work I do. So thanks for having me here.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. So as I was saying before, it sounds like everybody kind of birthed their ideas and their visions through not feeling like the need was simply being met by anyone else. So for those who are watching out there, if you just kind of listen to what everybody was saying, just remember the vision is the most important thing. And if you have that and you continue to clarify that over time, it's never what it looks like when you started. So I think it's just great that everybody got started, and I'm so happy to see that everybody's doing well. And that kind of leads into the next question of, you know, this is a pandemic. I just keep using that word because I think that we're trying to just keep going and keep the businesses functioning and keep people connected. So it's like, you know, have goals changed? Have there been anything, has there been anything that has really had to take a sharp pivot with the world that we're in now? Everything is kind of done virtually and such. So what did that mean for you and for your business when we were told that we were no longer able to come together? Because we all do things that bring people together, and we kind of want to be in that space to do it. But with that not being the main option in these times, how did that kind of pivot or change any of your goals? Siddhi, I'll go back to you.
Like I said previously, it was definitely like difficult to start the business because it was like the heavy lockdown at the beginning. But the thing with like creating music, people always wanna do that, like regardless if there's like a pandemic or whatnot. So we we always found a way to kind of like manage, you know, how many people come by or whatnot. It does suck because like a lot of things I want to do was like create events to have like a whole bunch of people like inside the space to like share their music or whatnot. But I'm still in a place where I'm trying to figure out where the world is going and how to take like a creative space digitally. You know, like I know like a lot of people are doing like live performances on like Instagram or pre-recorded performances. So that's something I've been looking into. So yeah, but in terms of like the creation aspect of the music, I don't think that's gonna stop. People are always gonna need an outlet to express themselves, and that's what I've seen so far.
Absolutely, we're always gonna need something. So thank you for answering that. Jen, I'll go over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think with the pandemic, I mean, it felt almost too easy at the beginning to be like, for a volunteer run thing, like, guess we're taking a year off. Like, we're all freaking tired. Like, this is something we do on top of our, you know, day jobs and other activities and other creative pursuits. So, but it just felt like, you know, artists were the first ones to mobilize when the pandemic hit. Like, you saw artists just like go straight to live streaming, and like they weren't getting paid. Like, there wasn't, you know, the infrastructure that there is now. They just knew that this is what they had to do, and we're part of that infrastructure. So it was really important for us to be there to support artists. Like, I mean, we had funding, you know, like, so it felt like a duty to be part of it. And you know, because we do public art, that was something that it was like, okay, we can do that still in a safe way, because it's, you know, it's outdoors, you have very few people working at the same time. So we were lucky for that. But I think one of the things that I think inspired us a lot this year as well was, I mean, obviously the pandemic, because it just put different restraints on it, and it forced us to think outside the box for like what kind of activities we're going to do and what they're going to look like. But it was also the Black Lives Matter movement. And, you know, as a public art festival that's run by white people, it's like, I think we were really ignorant at the beginning of really where the public art, like the history of public art and where that came from. And we've been learning year after year with the help of some really amazing people who have kind of been educating us. We've been educating ourselves on kind of what we need to do to honor that better. And you know, this year we've been working with Anna Brown, she's been our installation art coordinator for a few years. She's also the co-president of Black Lives Matter Sudbury. We hired her as a guest curator this year. And so it was an opportunity for us to really put that control in the hands of a person of color in Sudbury as well. Like, if we're talking about creating spaces, you know, it felt disingenuous for us to continue being the decision makers and pretending like we owned the space when we share the space. And I think it's important to always be kind of sharing that space as well. Once you've created it, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to everyone, and that's our responsibility.
Thank you, Jen. And yourself, Jacqui?
I think with the pandemic, when it hit, it was really, that was the first thing, was like Jen was saying, like, you know, gone straight to social media again and just trying to keep up with like giving. I remember just like going online and sharing stories online. But then what started happening was that there was this really heaviness that was in the heart that I couldn't place. I didn't know what it was. It was just this feeling, and it just became heavier and heavier. No matter how much I was trying to, you know, finding new avenues with Zoom and Instagram and going online, I knew in my heart that for me was not what I was used to with connection, you know. And I felt this deep loss, and I actually you know, went through a stage of just saying no, and said, I'll never go back to storytelling, or, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with the community, just this absolute loss. And I think then in that moment, there was a sense of surrender, and instead of fighting and you know, going out and keep giving as an artist, was just the surrender of like, no, like this, I just need to take care of this vessel in order to get it ready for whatever is needed of source as me as a vessel. Because that's how I always think of as artists, you know, we vessels for source to come through and, you know, to give. And then I found different avenues of places of within my art that I'd neglected for a while. And so I started slowly navigating, you know, finding a lot of compassion with self. And I think through that grew this beautiful new flower, this new plant that, you know, started taking shape of, you know, reaching out to community and just really just taking a step back, you know. And I find that now goals have shifted, but some old ones are still there, obviously, because that's where the roots are. But it's kind of in this new emerging plant of like, okay, in a way, the pandemic has been a blessing in disguise. I know it's brought up a lot of hardships for people, but I find that within those hardships, so many beautiful, I don't know, I want to say plants, creations have come through because of this. We'd have to ask ourselves as artists, what, you know, why do we do what we do? What is the purpose? To dig deeper than we've ever dug before, to really dig deep into those feelings and emotions, and to bring it up and to share that with people in a whole different way. I found myself being challenged a lot technologically, and found that very frustrating, and just being like, how do I still get across? Where is, you know, how, what, when? But slowly over time, it's lots of patience and understanding. And now with the studio, you know, it's like, okay, so now we have this new way of living for now. How can we recreate and open up the space for communities that can still use the space? And how can I still share my art in a way that is still rooted in my beliefs, but in a new format? So, yeah.
Great, thank you, Jacqui. And Sami, how about yourself?
To be honest, that's a bit of like a kind of shaky question, I guess. You know, we are literally just a space where people come together and connect and socialize. So it's really difficult to imagine how a dance studio, which is social dancing, social connection, can operate in a world where social distancing is happening. And from the very beginning, when this shit was going on, I was like, that word social distancing is the thing that scares me the most, because that is going to linger a whole lot longer than this virus or pandemic. Like, people are having a hard time connecting. People are inhuman. We're like walking around like this. We're not connecting with people. We're scared to touch. We're scared to hug. We're scared to hold hands and move, you know? So right at the beginning, like, we were trying to find ways to adapt and trying to switch things up and trying to pivot in a sense. You know, pandemic brought on a lot of other shit for people, and like some heavy life stuff hit me pretty hard in the middle of May, and like really threw me off. And I think one of the things for us compared to other centers where, like, you know, fitness and activity happened, is that the people that we had teaching were ones that were really good at what they did. And a lot of them may not have come from a lot. And it was really difficult to put that pressure on to be like, all right, you're going to teach a class from your home and it's going to be done for us. So it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't know what kind of situations people are dealing with. Like, I offered it in terms of like, you can volunteer if you want. People took their time and like, we did some things, but it's really hard for me to want to go back. It's hard for me to feel like I'm committed to the goal that I had set in the first place, when it was literally like, I want to get people to stop learning off of YouTube if I start putting that shit on YouTube, you know? So it's hard for me to picture that. But understanding that the position that we're in the resources that we have in terms of a physical location in a physical space, and what that could mean to not just dancers, but to other artists, started to come about. So one of the things that we're really starting to do is, in terms of using our whole facility, is how can we offer this space to other artists? We have resources, we have, you know, sound equipment, we have some lighting, like shit like this. Like, how can we set this up so people can use it for other things? So one of the things that we're really looking at doing, and is to offer it up to other artists. So maybe like, you know, photography people, like, come in, you can use the space for a photo shoot, you can film like music videos or something in here. So one of the things that we actually have coming up is on the 15th of October, Cranium is running one of their full day festivals out of the location. And that's a really good opportunity for us to show, you know, you can do a live concert in here and then stream it out. There's lots of space to be setting up and have people in the background and things like this. And then in terms of performing arts and dance. It took a really long time for me to visualize how that could really take shape. So not just the classes like that can be something that can definitely adapt to being filmed and things like this. I think there's like a hybrid model that we're looking at, doing some in-house, some online. And again, like we were looking to literally launch for school. So I was like, September, we're gonna launch. And then I'm like, you know what? We should wait a couple weeks and see how schools go. And then here we are a couple weeks later, and second wave is hitting. And I just found out like today that at 12 o'clock, they're going to be shutting down fitness and group sessions in Ontario to only offer like 10 people per room, which is just like nothing, you know, like we're used to having like 30 people, 40 people crammed in a room, and now we're down to 10, you know. That's really difficult to like feasibly manage the overhead costs. And like not only that, but like paying an instructor, like how are you going to do that? And then on top of that, be able to pay the rent and keep the lights on. It's completely changed from what it was last year, you know? But in terms of like the performance stuff, I had the opportunity to go up to Whitehorse for an event called Cypherfest, which is an event I got to run like 10 years ago and helped inspire me to open up the studio. And they adapted their performance, which was usually bringing in artists to perform this theater, hip hop, urban dance piece in their art center. Instead, they had people submit 5-minute pieces that could be shown digitally, virtually through video. And then we like hosted it live. So I was one of the hosts. There was like maybe 20 people in the 300-person auditorium that got to watch it, but the screen was there. We had a set on stage. We got to do little bits and things like this. And it really showed me the opportunity that is out there for adaptive performance to be able to be placed into video, but not just like, here's your performance, let's shoot it, right? But like, what are ways you can use the camera? What are ways you can use lighting? What are ways you can use sound, storytelling, things like this that I think is really interesting, but hasn't been completely flushed out, at least in terms of the urban and hip hop community, because of the opportunity of skill sharing and of knowledge passing. So coming back, it kind of hit me like, that's a really great opportunity to teach and to pass things along. So the production side of like video and film is something really interesting and something that I've been looking to explore for quite some time. And it just seems like that's a great opportunity at this moment to use this space as like a jumping off point to kind of like merge a couple of things, but then also adapt the Flavor Factory to not be just a Flavor Factory, the only urban or street dance studio in the city, but the Flavor Factory community studio, so that people can think about it in terms of, here's a chance to use a space and not just, here's a dance studio. So that's some of that, but still like, you know, we're doing some renos, we're still doing some whatever, and we were gonna launch right after Cranium hit, but now it's like today I'm like, okay, well, we got to readapt again, and like, how's that gonna look? But you know, having a couple kinders, juniors, and kids running around here and trying to get them to put a mask on and stay a few feet apart without touching each other's face or poking each other is just not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? So that's something I had to really think about, but was something we were super hopeful for, because people want that. The parents are still asking us about it, but it's one of those things where I just didn't feel comfortable. And right off the bat, like, we closed our shop. We announced we were closing our shop on March 13th, like well before the other places had to close. And it was really in line with like what the city and the schools were doing. And just in terms of responsibility for us being not a publicly funded place, but a publicly attended place in terms of, you know, I want to make sure people stay safe. Like, we have a few hundred people and, you know, up to 1,000 people coming through here when you consider parents and stuff. And like, at any given moment in a regular time, there's like 100, 150 people roaming through and squeezing through the halls and stuff. And like, how's that going to happen? Is that ever going to happen again? I don't know, but it'd be sad if it didn't, because these dances are meant to be shared in person. The energy that you feel from like resonating and building the groove and the vibrations is like, you got to pass that along, and you can't pass that shit along through a screen. So it's kind of sad. And I'm trying to find that bit of hopefulness, but I'm still like, that little bit of hope is still not enough for me to be like, it makes sense to keep a space open, you know? I don't know, especially like this large of a space. If it's just filming and shit on camera, like do it out of a garage or something. But like to have a physical location was what I really wanted, and not like, and to be able to bring people together, to be able to throw events, you know, like we were set to throw some of the biggest events that we were planning, and literally a couple of weeks after the pandemic had started, and you know, there's 500, 600 people that usually come to those events. And like, I really hope we can get back to that, because that's what my mission statement in life has been, is being able to connect people and being able to give them space to come together. And that can happen online, but I think it just doesn't have the same flavor for me.
Thank you, Sami. Yeah, it definitely doesn't have the same energy, but it sounds so far like everybody's doing a great job in kind of that surrender, as Jacqui said, because there is a bit of surrender that has to happen of, okay, this is where we're at, this is what it is, and the what's next, going into the unknown. Thank you for that. Tao, how about yourself? How's this all affected the change that has been going on with yourself and Blue Crane Agency?
Yeah, well, first of all, the whole touring industry is bust. It's completely out the window. You know, I had a couple acts, for example, booked out at Oshiega this year, and you know, they were trying to do something for the fall, and just like, you know, booking shows that had been on the plate, you know, June, July, August. They were going to be rescheduled September, October, November. And then, you know, May rolls around and all the fall shows are canceled. So there's this pushback, and then the full cancellation. And then 2020 booking year is done. Now we're looking at 2021. And now we might be looking at 2022. So, you know, booking agencies have been one of the hardest hit for sure. You know, we're sort of on the flip side of Jen McKerral's position of the festivals and the presenters and the bookers. So, you know, it's a very sad time to know that I might be out of a job for 2 years. I had a baby a week before the lockdown, so raising a baby in a pandemic has been a whole other side of things. And you know, as Jacqui was saying, for me, I've had the privilege of experiencing that blessing in disguise during a pandemic, which is having a mat leave that I never thought I would have. I've been hustling so hard since building my own agency from day one, and I just didn't stop. So to be honest, the pandemic has been a stop for me that I would never have advocated for or asked for or been given. So to be honest, this break, this hiatus, this stop in the show and touring industry has been a pullback for Blue Crane, stepping back, doing strategic direction, upgrading my accounting system so my artists can get paid in a better and more professional way, quicker way. You know, tour accounting and show accounting is horrendous. So, you know, I've upgraded to a better program, you know, upgrading the website, doing marketing things. And then the last piece is doing a lot of more advocacy work, and I've sort of time for that and better time to breathe into my professional development positions, which I'm a board director at a few places. So I'll talk about that in the end, but now I just want to close off the show and touring side of things, which is, it's a tough time. Like Blues Fest had like their first drive-in theater show that I booked Zaki Ibrahim at, which we did in August. And it was great. It's still not the same, you know, as an artist performing on a stage, and you know, you're just performing to cars honking at you instead of, can't really hear the clapping. So it's a weird time for my artists, you know, they're just like, what, we're supposed to do this? Like go to Ottawa and perform for 20 minutes on the stage in front of 100 cars. And so that booking landscape has changed. You know, additional live stream riders, tech wise and also safety wise, we've had to integrate that admin and paperwork into all our show contracts and things like that. And then the last thing is like safety. It's like I can book shows like that. Like I just did one for Bambi at the orientation week for University of Western. You know, like I just feel a bit funny sort of booking my artists and sending them on the road. That's like an additional sort of step as their agency. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, we've worked together on a few things. So appreciate that. And you know, I can book a show. I can get the right budget for my artist. I can get a look and a profile that they like, that they want to do. But you know, I'm spending, you know, text messages additional with my artist being like, okay, are you sure you're getting okay getting on a bus to London? Are you sure you're getting okay getting on a train to whatever, you know, double checking schedules and transport for my artists. So there's that additional step for sure. And also, you know, we book minority artists. It's like, it's crazy being Black and brown during the pandemic right now. It wasn't safe for a lot of even my trans artists to tour before. You know, figuring out ID at sound check and at the bar and making sure security staff was, you know, as safe as they could be in receiving my, you know, genderqueer trans artists touring on the road, add them being BIPOC, like, and then now adding pandemic. It's like, I don't feel safe actually booking shows for certain of my artists because it often wasn't safe for them before. So now it just adds a different dimension to space and place and distancing in the venue, if we're doing live stream tapings and things like that. So all added dimensions. And then the last thing is the organizing. I was talking about the advocacy. I'm a board director at Polaris Music Prize, also the Canadian Live Music Association, and an active member at Toronto City Hall for the Toronto Music Advisory Council. And you know, it's as Jen McKerral talked about, it's like it's a BLM year, and it should be a BLM year for every year in the future. And things have shifted in a big way. Like all me and my BIPOC music industry friends have never been asked to be on as many boards as we've ever been asked before. Like it's kind of crazy. I don't know where all these like older white folks were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 2 years ago, or 6 months ago. So that needs to stay, and that needs to maintain, and doing a lot of organization to bring sort of my BIPOC fellow members into these boards where people can start making decisions, people can start changing the landscape, so the music industry can be fit to run when this is all over, when vaccines are introduced and when people feel comfortable using vaccines in a way that they'll pay for a concert ticket to go to our events again. It may take a while, but my hope is that, you know, the industry will, when there's a shakeup like this, I think there's room for imagination and recreation, and that's all I hope that's coming out of this pandemic. So. Yeah.
Thank you, Cal.
Yeah.
A lot of reimagination, a lot of recreation, and it sounds like everybody's doing their best to pivot, working with what we've got, and it's entrepreneurship at its finest is what I found. So it's great to see how entrepreneurship is really being taken to a whole nother level that I don't know for some of us we even recognize we were capable of, making such big pivots and changes at the drop of a hat. So yeah, being quite interesting, lots of learning to do. And we don't know when things are going to go back to a quote unquote normal. So until then, how do you feel like the community can support you? How do you feel like the people that would usually attend the events and come into the space can help support and allow for some sustainability with your business? How can we help you guys during these times? I'll start with you, City.
For me, I would say when it comes to the city of Ottawa, I feel like the people that are on these boards or are in these rooms that are able to like fund, companies and people that are really, doing the grassroots work to really, provide funding to certain people that are obviously doing the work, because a lot in the past, there's people that have been getting funding in the city, and it's like you ask yourself why, like, well, where's the resume of that person? Like, why is that person getting like a large amount of money to strategize for a city, but they're not really like in the know. They don't know what's going on. They don't know how to, they don't know what's gonna bring the culture forward. So I think it's just one of those things where we got to continue to advocate for the people that are doing the grassroots work, and that's what I would say about that.
Do you feel like it's important for us to step into these boards and really change the way that the voices are sounding around those round gatekeeping tables these days?
We definitely need more people in those rooms, because it's like what we spoke about earlier. It took like George Floyd for people to really understand, the struggle of a Black human. So prior to that, you could apply. So I'm speaking more from a perspective of someone that grew up in Ottawa. So like, previously you could have applied for a grant where it's like your project is talking about, the Black struggle, the growing up in low income environments. But if there's someone at the board that's reading the grant and doesn't believe like these things are actually happening, then they're not going to fund the grant, because to them it's like, in my eyes, the things that they're trying to display doesn't exist. So we need more people that in those rooms that could relate to people like me and that could understand the power of individuals like us, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to shift the culture. We're the one that's going to save a lot of kids from being on the street. We're the individuals that could really connect with, these kids that want to be in the world of arts, and just like recently, when they posted the big article on Ottawa Citizen, like I really felt the shift and the energy change that day, just because it's like I felt like people are like, finally we see someone that looks like us, like on the front page. That's like, so if he's able to do something, I'm able to do it, and then that's gonna allow parents to like really invest in their kids when they see how passionate they are about like their music or whatever they're driven to do. So we definitely need more people that in those rooms that understand this industry, I guess,
What was that feeling like to see yourself? You just got a feature in the Ottawa Citizen, as well as Leah Cloud and Kevin Bourne of the Shifter Agency. What was it like to see a huge spread with your voice just being heard by the whole city, if not let alone the country, because we then shared that all over the place. So what was that feeling like for you at this kind of stage of your career?
Honestly, it was like, it was the first time in a long time I actually had like tears of joy, just because I've been fighting for that moment for so long. You know, it's like, you know, I would say as an independent artist, I've done, you know, pretty well. So to never get like, you know, recognized by the gatekeepers in my city, while like, you know, I'm receiving a lot of like love elsewhere, it was heartbreaking. You know, it was heartbreaking, and I knew a lot of it had to do with the color of my skin. Like, you know, like I hated the fact that like, in order to get like on CTV or whatever, I had to attach a charity to like my purpose to being on there. You know, when I've seen like a lot of artists just simply promote their album or whatnot. So yeah, it was really, I just felt like it was a moment for the city. I felt like a lot of people got inspired by it, just because a lot of people seen it. You know, I was that young kid in the neighborhood that always loved music, and I just never stopped. You know, and I'm slowly bridging the gap between, you know, the culture and, you know, the gatekeepers, until we remove all the gatekeepers. So yeah.
We're very proud of you. Thank you for that. And I think it's a reminder of, you know, we're the human race, and we have cultures that we should all be willing to celebrate amongst one another. And if we can move from that type of energy, I think it would make a lot kind of, you know, deeper waves. There'd be a lot more smooth waves. And they wouldn't just come crashing down. They'd be kind of, once again, building those bridges that we see happening now, finally. Jen, I'll move on to you. How can we support during these times?
Yeah, I think like even some of the conversations, like there was Venus Fest had a bunch of panels this week, and I felt like all we kept hearing was just that we've been working so hard. Like, you know, a lot of people are doing volunteer stuff. A lot of people are just doing stuff because you know, they're creating these spaces because of the need, not because of the paycheck, you know. So, you know, like Tao was talking about the hustle, like Tao, you work so hard, like, and it's unsustainable. We can't keep doing this to ourselves. And I hope that, like, you know, one of the things we kept hearing was like this, like these conversations that we're having and saying like, this is what needs to change. Like we all need to support that moving forward, to make sure that when this all starts back up, we don't just revert back to this grind, this eternal grind that we felt like we had to do all the time. And like Jacqui, you mentioned too, like kind of just like feeling paralyzed by stuff. And like maybe part of that's burnout too. Like I felt it when it was like, oh, pandemic, cool, maybe we don't have to do a festival. Like it was my first thought, because it was like, I'm tired. And you know, that work always lands on the same people's shoulders. And so yeah, I hope that more people can kind of get together and do the work that's needed to create more equity in the industry and in our communities, and kind of lift up voices that aren't typically at the table, like we were just talking about too, like City was saying, like just opening up your spaces and making sure that you have a diversity of voices, and that you're listening to what people are saying, and incorporating that into your whatever it is that you're doing. So I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No.
I was just going to say, you know, prior to the world, you know, recognizing the traumas that the Black community faces and BIPOC communities face, had you already been doing some work in this respect, or at least acknowledge that it was to the degree it was, or did the spark in this movement really bring that to light for you?
I mean, I think a bit of both. It was something we'd been working at deliberately, and you have to, like, it has to be something you address and you confront deliberately as a white person. And, you know, it's like, I think this year, obviously, I think for a lot of people, it was the stories we're hearing and kind of the movement being more at the forefront. I think it's transformative for a lot of people. There's no going back from what I think, from the progress that I think was made this year. And I hope that keeps going, but it takes a collective effort.
Thank you for being a part of that collective. You know, we need everybody on board. So thank you for that, Jen. I'll move on to you, Jacqui. How can we support during these times? Oh, you're on mute.
That's going to be meme sayings for 2020. Oh, you're on mute. Well, in terms of the origin, we've had some really amazing support from the community. And again, I want to give a shout out to every single person who continuously, from donations from anonymous people to organizations like Uproar and Grunt and various festivals, who have people just wanting to see the space keeping thriving. So I just want to give a huge shout out and a thanks to every single one who still keeps us in mind and keeps our vision in mind. So far, we have progressed in a way where our space has been booked by various artists who have performed outside in the garage space with rules intact, as well as having online streaming meetings, whereas interviews like this, using social media if they want a better background, places where it's been booked, not places, sorry, but events where it has been booked for private viewings for family members only. So we're really blessed, and we want to just put it out there that it is, you know, for the community to keep coming in, and any new ideas with all the protocols in mind to this is what the space is for, you know, and to keep creating.
And how do you find you kind of settled into the storytelling aspect of what you do? Because that's such a big, it is a huge piece of you. And I know that you were doing some things online, some things on IG Live. I was able to tune in to one or two. And so have you been able to settle more into wanting to move into that? Or have you decided to kind of pause and let things breathe before you jump back into it?
Thanks. That's actually very good. I read a story, going back to stories, I read a story recently that said a glow stick has to be broken in order for it to glow. If it's just a stick, you'd never know the true power until it's broken and snapped. And in a way, that's how I kind of saw what happened with the pandemic, was that breaking point that I had. Like, it was a real emotional breaking point, that allowing myself to breathe. Yet through that, like I spoke before, came this seedlings of new ways of seeing how can I still do what I do from this space. And you know, it took a lot of support from various people in different backgrounds in theater as well as storytelling, and supporting each other. And since then, it's been actually a blessing. It really has, because I've worked with people from all over the world. I've done workshops where I've connected, you know, ran storytelling workshops with people all the way from the UK and Japan and Saudi Arabia and all over Canada, tuning into a workshop, working with a theater, directing my first online theater show, you know, using the camera and finding new ways of, interesting ways of, like, ooh, how can that be a part of connecting? And how can I use the camera that's not just facing me, but actually as if I'm touching you or reaching out to you, you know, just finding creative ways, and being in various productions, as well as exploring those avenues of being in a theatrical production, or a reading, a play reading, and then through that, just enhancing the form of storytelling, and just being like, oh, okay, so this is something new, this is something I can try out, this is, you know, and we all know that, you know, creation, like love, is patient. So you really have to harness that energy of patience, especially during this time of like holding space for that creation to take place. It's not going to be like this, you know, and you were at a place like this, but now we have to be like, whoa, okay, let's breathe, let's take space. And it can be frustrating because you're like, come on. But love is really patient and kind. And that's what I feel is creation as well. So it's been great. And so through that, just also exploring, like, from that birth, you know, narrating books for audiobooks and narrating my own children's stories, you know, and doing sound for that. And out of that came, oh, here's a new project of filming for storytelling. And, you know, there's little by little, all these new things are coming in, but it's really there if you open your mind to it. And I think I really just go back to that glow stick theory, that story. So yeah, so thank you.
Yes, thank you for that analogy. I love analogies, and I'm definitely going to be using that glow stick analogy for sure. Thank you, Jacqui. Tao, I know you have to get back to baby, so I'll jump over to you. Tell us how we can support during these times.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for the question. It's very kind. So that question should be posed to, I think, like all the stakeholders, the gatekeepers, all the old guard of the Canadian music industry, for sure. They should be the ones supporting. So I appreciate you asking the question. They should be asking the question as well. But you know, I'm a music business nerd, so I'm all about the show math, income, how we can get BIPOC folks and minority folks better paid in this industry post-pandemic. So I'm always just thinking on the road stuff. I'd love to, and I'm just like riffing on my dreams and my visions for the future, but stuff that always just like comes up to mind is it's always hard for minority artists to tour. There's always extra costs. And that on top of racism that you get from venues and bars that don't want to rent space to Black folks, and just misgendering of trans folks on the road, in sound check in the green room, by, you know, sound people at the venue. Like, it's just, I'd love to just address all that and you know, maybe envision a world where you have set and scaled pay rates for minority artists and versus non-minority artists. So I would love to see per diems, you know, $25 given out to sort of young brown and Black musicians and artists that help them get from point A to point B so they can get on stage and perform. You know, meal tickets. I would love to give minority bands and artists, you know, double the amount of meal tickets for young BIPOC artists touring, as opposed to people who can actually afford their lunch and dinner, or go out for drinks at the bar in whatever X town that they're touring in after. A lot of my musicians can't afford to do that, to buy themselves a good meal after they perform on stage, and have toured in a new city where they don't know any folks. I would love to see, you know, even guarantees, you know, like guarantees for Black and brown folks that are $500 more or $1,000 more, depending on, say, fan viewership, Spotify followers, Instagram and Facebook followers, like to have sort of set pay scales and rates, I think would be great. Oh, I think babe, are you outside? Yeah, I think I have to feed baby, but I just just ways that we can address equity by money, because when it comes down to it, when you're starving at the end of a performance or a meal, and it's been hard to sort of get to that city, these sorts of fringe benefits in relation to your show deal, I think really helps musicians get across North America, wherever they're touring. And then lastly, consultation fees. A lot of white folks now are like, great, BIPOC folks, Black folks, Indigenous folks, we want you on our boards now. Can you suggest who? And sometimes like, I'm often a resource that people go to. I spend a lot of unpaid labor and work recommending other BIPOC folks, saying how they're great, and this is how they'd contribute to your board. You know, they've worked in music publishing or marketing, and they're amazing because of ABC. That's like hours on my end that I'm recommending other BIPOC folks. So I'd love to be paid like an hourly, or I just need to do that. I just need to charge consultation hours for that. But paying BIPOC folks to recommend other BIPOC folks so we can make this all a more equitable industry. I'd love to see that. So yeah, thank you.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being here with us. I look forward to seeing what you're going to be doing with the future, because it sounds like you have a lot of work ahead, but please remember to pace yourself and enjoy the baby too.
Yeah, totally. Likewise. Great to meet everyone, and let's all stay connected.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tao. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Awesome. I love that. There's definitely lots of work to do, and it's nonstop. So it's great to be surrounded by people who are ready for it. Sami, tell us, how can we support you?
To be completely honest, I think the biggest thing would be just a little bit of empathy from everybody. I think that there is a lot of unknown shit happening, and you know, people are coming to you asking for answers, and it's like, we don't have them. Like, again, like, shit's happening on the fly. Like, we have to readapt because something's going on today. But also keeping in mind, if you want to see these type of spaces stay alive, like, support these spaces. And I think sometimes as artists, we are struggling to keep our own shit together, that we sometimes forget other people are as well. And when we're looking at these spaces, we're like, oh, the walls are up, it's good. And it's like, the foundation's barely holding up, you know? The city spaces, those bigger funded spaces, that shit is gonna still be there, you know? Like, the city's not gonna shut down their community center. But if you want to see a type of space that supports your people and gives back to your community, then you kind of have to do the same too. And it's one of those things where, like, you know, those bills need to get paid as well. So, like, really try to find a balance there. And, like, obviously everybody's out there to try to support each other, but, like, keep that in mind when you're going to approach some of these spots as well, or things like this. And just know who's got your back and, like, what kind of places are around there. Like, you know, we're one of the most, if not the most diverse studios in the city, and that's like across the block in terms of, you know, fitness, yoga, and all those places. And I made mention of that when the George Floyd stuff was going on. Like, I'm not Black, but we operate in a culture that comes from the Black struggles of New York and all over the place, and we make sure we mention that, and we have that type of representation. And it's not the kind of thing that we, like, I don't want to say we actively go and look for that, but we have the space that attracts people to feel comfortable to come to. And we make sure that we put people on because they're good at the shit that they do. And not just because they've come to our place, they've paid us our money, they've learned from us, and then we've kept that forward. And that's the kind of consciousness to keep in mind as well, is that keep the ball rolling, keep supporting each other, keep the money in our community, in our space, in our area, and in our people, and also keep that support there, and keep a little bit of mind and heart on that as well, because everybody's going through some shit. There's, you know, this world is changing on the fly. Nobody's got the answers right now, because tomorrow they're going to give us something else that we have to figure the fuck out. And it's just going to be like that, you know? So there's a lot of struggle and hardship for everybody. Let's just, you know, pause a little bit before we react.
Yeah, very great point. Nobody knows what's going on. You know, it kind of goes into my next question, that, you know, it's a tricky one to ask, because we once again, like, you just got new update today of only 10 people in the class. So yesterday the answer would have been different from what it is now. You know, we have 2 months left in the year. I can't believe that it's, you know, kind of wrapping itself up. That being said, are there any programs that that you kind of know you're going to be launching in these next coming months, or, you know, just any kind of expansion or growth, whether it be within your business or whether it even be within yourself, that you want to kind of share and let us know about?
Sure. Well, speaking about struggles and stuff, mid-May, I lost my younger brother, and that really threw me off. And, you know, talking and hearing from Jacqui and all this, it's like, and even you know, all the Tao, I had been so used to working and focusing on shit. If I hadn't had that pause and hadn't had a break, I don't think I would have gotten so deep into focusing on my own self and breaking my glow stick, you know, to actually think about healing and like going deep. I wouldn't have done that, you know? So speaking about that, my younger brother had always been interested in acting and film and stuff like this. And even growing up, I was like, oh, I want to be a film producer. Like, I love movies. I love shit like this. And then spending that time in Whitehorse really inspired me. And I left the event thinking like, oh man, this is really great. Like, I really maybe should jump into doing that. And I haven't announced it yet, but I've been really considering. I know I'm definitely going to be opening up a production company, and I'm naming it after my brother's gamer tag. I sat down when I came home from Whitehorse, and I was like, I wanna do this. Like, what am I gonna do? I put my Xbox on, I had my headphones in, and his gaming profile popped up. So Nuclear Pandora Productions, we're gonna be focused on offering not only you know, doing films and movies. Like, we're going to be looking to do some big stuff, but there's going to be a component that offers youth an opportunity to learn how to use their voice and adapt it for film. We're going to be running it out of the studio next year as an intensive, and it'll give them a chance to be able to show and focus on their own struggles and things. Like, my younger brother, we grew up around the South Keys area. It's not like the best area. Like, he had a pretty hard life, and like, I just want to give that opportunity back to young people, but then also an opportunity for people and artists to adapt their stuff so that they can present it to film as well. So some of the things that we're looking at doing is definitely offering some online and virtual classes, but not just like camera and class, and then also offering some performances and things like this, and then being able to offer space. So, you know, talking to Patrick from Cranium, like I've worked with Patrick at House of Paint, so I don't think I mentioned that. I used to run the dance programming for House of Paint for almost a decade. I also was the executive director just before Veronica took hold, so I had a lot of experience working in terms of festival productions and things like this. So really happy to be connecting with Patrick and offering the Cranium Festival as the first kickoff in the space with that new kind of mindset. We've shifted to offer a clothing boutique as well as a space for people to consign their clothing, to have their art, to have their records, all this stuff. There's a whole room that we're looking to set up that'll be here all the time. The space is going to be available. We're trying to set it up for contactless rentals as well, so you can come rent the space, log in, get in there, do your shit. We'll come in and we'll clean up. Eventually, we're going to be building out in terms of having, you know, screens so you can pull down if you're looking to do a photography shoot. There'll be cameras and lighting set up so that you guys can use that as well. And then the space will still be used as a dance studio. So there's a whole lot of time that things are available there as well. But yeah, a lot of stuff in the back pocket we haven't launched yet. I was really waiting to see about this stuff. The beginning of the pandemic, we were definitely hustling and looking to get the word out about this stuff. But then, yeah, mid-May, it kind of threw me off. And to be completely honest, like, it took a long time. And I'm saying till like maybe last week for me to see that glow stick like really start to shine. And I really had to like break the shit down to actually feel it. And that's the big thing that I haven't launched yet. Nuclear Pandora Productions. That'll be the next wave. And we're going to be running it out of the same facility, but, you know, same but different, right?
You know, Sami, as you were speaking, sorry, Paula, as you were speaking, I'm like goosebumping all over the hairs are standing here at the back of my neck. I was like feeling it. I'm like, yeah, you glowing. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
I agree. There's an energy that you just came with when you were announcing all of these things that you have in motion. So I'm so, glad that you were able to pause into that healing side, because we all need it. The whole nation needs the healing. I'm so sorry for the loss of your brother. And I know that he's smiling hearing that, what you're doing, with his honor and with his legacy. So thank you so much for sharing with us first. Yes, thank you, Sami. Okay, guys, we're wrapping up. We have a few minutes left, but I do want to know from the rest of the panel if there's anything that you have coming up that you'd like to mention and let the people know to kind of wait and get excited for. I'll jump over to you, Jacqui.
Oh, for me, there's lots of different projects happening here and there, so I really have to find it a little bit. I'll be in a Halloween radio theatrical performance, which will be at the Gladstone, so keep an eye out for that. And I'm going to be narrating some of my own children's stories books that I've written, and so that will be put onto audiobooks. And other than that, I have my annual upcoming women's storytelling retreat that this time around will be online, and we'll see how it works in terms of spatial setting and things like that. But that's me. There is more, but I just here's the other one. And then I just narrated a book called This Book Betrays My Brother by Kagiso Lesejo Malope, who is from South Africa but lives here in Ottawa. She's a multi-award winning playwright, and it was directed by Diane Roberts, who is a multi-award winning director who directed Sal Capone, that was here at the NAC, and she directed it. And that audiobook will be coming out at the end of October as well.
Thank you again for sharing. I'm glad to hear that you have so much going on, even in the midst. So thank you again for sharing that with us. We'll be sure to keep looking out. Jen, how about yourself? What's coming up?
We found ourselves in grant writing season again, which blows my mind, but we're still working on some stuff. We're working on a podcast, which we'll be putting out. So for Up Here Festival, it's like a project of the organization called We Live Up Here, and We Live Up Here has done book publishing, like collective photography books, and some storytelling also. We used to do kind of videos of different folks in our community, different features. And we're, I think, really excited to get back into that storytelling aspect of our practice, and sharing, especially now with Up Here Festival, having an audience that is not just in Sudbury or not primarily in Sudbury. It's like our chance to share a lot of the cool things that we're doing here. And from the beginning, part of the motivation to do any of this was to also kind of feel as though, like, this mining town isn't just that, and that there's so much more here going on. And so we had to challenge the perception of our own city internally. Like, we always joked, like, Sudbury has a self-esteem problem. And so, that's kind of what we're up against, but it's also now challenging that perception from the outside, and just showing people kind of what's going on here and the cool stuff that we're capable of here. So yeah, that's coming up. And oh, sweet, City's back. We'll give him a few minutes as well. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jenna. It's great to have you. This is awesome. I love hearing all the projects that everybody has coming up. And City, we're gonna finish off with you. What is going on? What's coming up?
Sorry about that. Just had someone come in. I had a client come in.
No worries.
I'm currently working on a non-for-profit that's going to assist pretty much youth that come from low-income environments and introduce them to financial literacy, tech, and music. I'm also working on a program where I'm going to take some emerging artists from the city to connect with industry professionals from Toronto, the States, and stuff like that. So just pretty much putting in work to kind of give artists here access to things that have been missing in our city for a long time.
Whew, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody's time today. This has just been so great to hear how everybody's been pivoting, and I love the fact that everybody's pivoting into a positive place and in a positive direction. And I'm just going to finish this off with the reminder for us to have empathy for one another, and not just, you know, today because we're going through something, but, you know, as the years go on and as the days go by, let's just be sure to be kind to one another, because we just don't know what we're going through at any given point in time. So thank you again for having me, House of PainT. Thank you so much, Veronica, for choosing me to moderate. And a shout out to King Kimbit and Nambi for finessing my bio.
Paula, thank you to all of our panelists and our interpreters, Chris doing ASL and Jimmy interpreting in French for us. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you all. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. We have 2 more days of Knowledge Conference and 1 more session today with Produced by Youth. So you can catch us at 3 p.m. To do a workshop on drum beats with Produced by Youth. Thanks, everyone.